Welcome back. Now, making sure your kids get enough sleep is just as important for their health as it is for the parents. And March is National Sleep Month. So today, how to safely put children to bed and tips for developing a sleep routine. And join me now is Rebecca Michelsen from Penfield Children's Center. And boy, are parents' ears pricking right now because this is a topic I think that no matter what age child you have, you are thinking, okay, I have no idea what the whole sleep thing is about, how much, when to have them sleep, so on and so forth. But before we dive into that, talk a little bit about Penfield Children's Center and what the mission is.
Sure. So at Penfield Children's Center, we are working to create a positive start in life for infants and young children. We work with both typically developing children and children with developmental delays and disabilities. We do this through educational services, health services, and family programming.
And now talking a little bit about the sleep aspect of that, I think a lot of parents have a baby, they think, okay, this baby is probably not going to sleep through the night for a little while.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they have this expectation that that's going to happen.
Right.
So starting out, what should we be focused on in those early months after the baby is born for starting a proper sleep routine?
The best thing we can do is create consistency. So just start creating an enjoyable routine that ends up with whatever room it is that they're going to be sleeping in. And it can be simple things like giving them a bath, reading a story, just doing some of those simple things. The other things that we want to keep in mind though too is even just making sure that the room stays the same throughout the night. So temperature is not going to change because again, when they're really young, we're not able to have a lot of items in the crib with them to keep them warm. So we want to dress them comfortably. We don't want to overdress them because if we overdress them, they could easily overheat. So we want to make sure they're dressed comfortably. We want to make sure the temperature stays the same, the light stays the same, and sometimes even the sounds in the room stay the same. So if you're using white noise or music, that it plays throughout the whole night versus just cutting off maybe after 20 minutes when you think they've fallen asleep.
Okay. Now, talk a little bit about the amount of sleep that children should get. And I know this differs by age. So
Definitely.
For a baby, let's say in the early stages, 3 to 4 months, or even birth to 3 months, let's start there, newborns. 14 to 17 hours. That seems like a lot of sleep.
It does, but the thing we need to remember is that that is also including any naps they take during the day. So that's just not what they're doing at night. That's all the sleep that they're getting throughout their day. The other thing we have to remember is each child is different. So we can always subtract or add 1 or 2 hours to that time frame, because just as with adults, some of us function better on 6 hours, some of us function better on 8 hours. Same goes for children. If you subtract maybe an hour or add maybe an hour, you're pretty safe. However, you don't want to go much below that or much over that.
And then once they age into the 4 to 11 months, 12 to 15 hours, that's not that big of a decrease. But then toddlers, 1 to 2 years, 11 to 14. So now we're seeing a little bit of a drop off here.
Right. And a lot of times the reason you see that drop off closer, and it happens closer to that 2-year age range, is sometimes they start growing out of that nap time. So then you're losing those couple hours during the day, but you still want to make sure they're getting enough then throughout their nights. Okay,
so the whole thing is to look at the cumulative picture. It's not how many naps, because I think a lot of moms think they're supposed to, for those early months especially, count the naps. It's not that. It's how does the time add up?
So how does the time add up throughout their day? So again, count every, if they get a half an hour here, half an hour there, add that into your time. Don't think that they're going to sleep 11 hours straight through.
Okay, and so then preschoolers, 10 to 13 hours, school-age children, 6 to 13 years of age, 9 to 11 hours. So now they're getting a little bit closer to what we say is the adult range.
Exactly,
exactly. And they're probably not taking naps because they're at school.
Exactly, yes.
So, okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the benefits of sleep, because obviously especially when your kids are at school age, you don't want to send them off to school tired.
Right. Right, and that's the thing is we want to send them off well rested, and when they're well rested, we find that they function better. There's less behavioral problems. It's easier for them to pay attention. And in the school, when they're in school, a lot of times there's lots of germs flying around. Well, when we're better rested, we're less likely to get sick.
So it really impacts your immune system.
Yes, yes.
And in those early years too, all the way, let's say from newborn to preschool age, their little brains are still developing rapidly.
Exactly, exactly. So again, if they're not getting enough sleep, it's harder for them to pay attention. It's harder for them to learn. A lot of times too, it even affects their abilities to eat because they're burning more calories than they need to because they're not well rested. And so sometimes then if we're getting overtired, we're not feeling like eating, and we're burning then even more calories than we would need to burn. So it makes it harder for us to pay attention.
Now, we hear a lot as parents about keeping your baby safe when they're sleeping. Things like don't prop them up, don't put them on their tummies, back is best, so on and so forth. Don't crowd the crib like you talked about. Are there things we need to be aware of as they get a little older for safe sleep?
Definitely. So as children get older, the biggest thing that we want to remember is to, if they're in that toddler phase, keep anything out of their sleep space that they could choke on. So I think about stuffed animals that have eyes that they can potentially pull off, because as you know, kids will wake up in the middle of the night. Maybe we won't hear them. They'll just kind of play in their cribs or play in their beds. We don't want to have anything that they could choke on. The other thing is we need to think about their pajamas. So we don't want anything with drawstrings on it. Most clothing now is made without drawstrings, but if we're using hand-me-downs, we just want to make sure that we remove any drawstrings from any pajamas, because it could be a choking hazard or a strangulation hazard.
Wow, and I don't think you think about that after a certain point. When your child becomes very aware and alert during their waking hours,
right,
you don't think about like, oh, but when they're, you know, half asleep, they're going to react a little bit differently.
Exactly, exactly.
That is a good tip right there, parents. Write that one down. So what other services does Penfield Children's Center provide as far as sleep, with respect to sleep training as it goes?
Sure. So with our Coles Building Blocks program, we are able to have a website, penfieldbuildingblocks.org, that allows us to share articles, videos, and tips with families about sleep, the importance of sleep, how to do sleep safely, how much sleep a child needs. And so it's a great resource that all of our families can go to look for that information.
That's fantastic. And again, as Rebecca mentioned, that is penfieldbuildingblocks.org. Go check it out. Parents, bookmark this one. You're going to visit it several times during the course of your child's childhood and get all that great information there. So thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.